Oh, well, that was an interesting start to the show. Good morning, everybody. This is Steve here live, loud, and proud on Tuesday morning. And we are streaming live via Twitter and Periscope this time as well. So, how about that, my friends? So, today we're going to be talking about the state of free speech in Canada. And what it's all about. And one of the things that's really sparked my decision to talk about this is the fact that we have issues surrounding this new motion that's come through Parliament called M103. And M103 is dealing specifically with the subject of what's called Islamophobia, which I really think is a made-up term to discuss and refer to the concept of fear of Islam. Now, my opinion on Islam is what it is, and I know that I disagree with a number of people on the right here in Canada. But it stems this whole Motion 103 stems from people criticizing Islam and people being anti-Islam and some of the concerns that people express regarding Islamic terrorism, which indeed has been known to happen from time to time. So there's that whole thing, and there's also the whole issue of the Human Rights Act, and that's really the history of free speech in Canada. It goes back to the late 1990s with the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, and I'm just pulling it up as I speak about this, but it's Section 13. Now, fortunately, Section 13 of the Human Rights Act has in fact been repealed. It disappeared silently and without any real fanfare back in 2012. Thank God. But I'll just pull up the text of it here, if I can find it. It deals with Section 13. People were using Section 13 to persecute and prosecute speech that not only, and speech and publications and such that not only they personally didn't like, but pretty much like to punish somebody for saying something that they disagreed with. And Section 13 stated that anybody who published or spoke something which could cause a member of an identifiable group to be likely to be exposed to hatred or contempt. And the problem with that is it was being abused, and it was very easy to abuse it, because when you make a complaint to the Human Rights Commission, which ends up reviewing the case and then passing it along to the Human Rights Tribunal for a quasi-judicial review process where the standard rules of procedure do not apply. When you do not apply. So when you make a complaint to the Human Rights Commission, you can write it out, you can scribble it on a napkin, and pass in your complaint, and they will begin investigating it. And as the person filing the complaint, this cost you nothing. So you know what the end result was. Anybody who didn't like something that anybody else could say, and a Canadian commentator by the name of Ezra Levant went through this with an old magazine he published called the Western Standard, which, as part of news, published the Danish cartoons, which caused such a fuss in Europe. These were the Danish cartoons of the Islamic, the people, the Islam is people that. Let me try that again. The person that Muslims call their prophet, Mohammed. And there were some caricature cartoons published of this guy. So somebody filed a complaint with Ezra against him with the Human Rights Commission. And the Canadian Human Rights Commission followed it through. I think that was the Alberta Human Rights Commission. But Section 13 was definitely being abused at a federal level. And when you make a complaint, it costs you nothing. You didn't have to pay a penny. They would hire lawyers, they would hire investigators, they would conduct all the interviews for you, and it would cost you nothing. Of course, if you're defending yourself against a complaint, then it would be totally different. You would be subject to getting your own lawyer. But Section 13 definitely. So I was just checking audio there. So Section 13 was being abused because you'd have to get your own lawyer at your own expense, fly across the country to defend yourself, and you'd find yourself in a position where you would be constantly spending money to defend yourself on a case that, because you can't actually defend yourself through the standard legal procedure, pretty much anything would go. So you would end up possibly losing anyway. And even if you win, the complainant doesn't care. He's forced you to spend all kinds of money defending yourself. It became a case where the process was the punishment, not the actual outcome, which is pretty awful. So that section is gone out of the federal statutes, fortunately. Yes, the previous Conservative government got rid of it because you know as well as I do that the current government under Justin Trudeau. Oh, I can't say his name. Not without choking on it anyway. They would never have gotten rid of it. In Alberta, my home province, it still has a code which does deal with this. It's Section 3. No person shall publish, issue, or display or cause to be published, issued, or displayed before the public any statement, publication, notice, sign, symbol, emblem, or other representation that A, indicates discrimination or an intention to discriminate against a person or a class of persons, or B, is likely to expose a person or a class of persons to hatred or contempt. You see, there it is. Because of their race, religious beliefs, color, gender, physical disability, mental disability, age, ancestry, place of origin, marital status, source of income, family status, or sexual orientation of that person or class of persons. You know, it'd be a lot easier just to say all people are considered equal for cases of consideration for employment or otherwise, and any person which advocates discriminating against any specific group of people based on inherent characteristics that they are unable to choose, then that's against the rules. All are equal. All means everybody. You don't need to qualify it. You see, you've got all these qualifications in here, and now all of a sudden left-handed people such as myself, it's legitimate to discriminate against us, isn't it, I guess? So free speech in Canada isn't nearly as free as you'd think it is. And with Motion 103, now, a couple of things about Motion 103. Well, one major thing. This is not a law. Motion 103, M103, is not a law. It is a motion. It is an official position of the Canadian House of Commons rammed through by the current governing Liberal Party of Canada. And there's a lot of people, and rightly so, quite afraid of what it means, because one of the things that the motion does is it puts in place the framework for creating a law which would outlaw statements criticizing Islam. Now, personally, I'm not a hugely opposed to the idea of Islam. I know that there's people who think Islam is a ideology, and there is aspects of Islam which are a political ideology versus a set of religious beliefs, which is fine. But frankly, Islam should be, just like Christianity or any other faith system, including atheism, by the way, should be open and free and fair game to criticism. How can you develop an opinion, and how can you develop a concept in your own mind unless you can challenge it and it will withstand the challenges and the criticism that you can send towards it? So Motion 103 calls on the government to condemn Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination. Asks the government to recognize the need to quell the increasing public climate of hate and fear, and request for the Commons Heritage Committee, aka the Ministry of Truth, how the government could develop a government-wide approach to reducing or eliminating systematic racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia, and collect data to provide context for hate crime reports, and to conduct needs assessment for impacted communities. Man, this is wordy. Findings are to be presented within 8 months. Okay, so the exact wording is this: that in the opinion of the House, the government should A. recognize the need to quell the increasing public climate of hate and fear, B. condemn Islamophobia and all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination, and take note of House of Commons Petition E411 and the issues raised by it, and C. request that the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage undertake a study on how the government could 1. develop a whole-of-government approach to reducing or eliminating systematic racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia in Canada, while ensuring a community-centered focus with a holistic... This is gibberish. I haven't actually read this before, can you tell? Collect data to contextualize hate crime reports, yada, 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 and all this other legalese mumbo-jumbo. Now, it's a motion. So it has no actual legal teeth, because it basically sets the House in action towards something rather than actually banning criticism of Islam outright. And that's a key element of this. So there you go. That's the motion. That's what the plan is. Now, the scary thing is, it is going to move us towards banning of certain speech, banning so-called blasphemy laws, because it sets the wheels in motion. Now, the problem here is in my view, there are definite, concise, specific things called hate crimes. A hate crime, in my view, is a direct call to violence. In other words, calling out people to, or calling for people to actually, let's say, go out gay bashing or go out beating up Muslims. It does not constitute saying it is wrong to be gay. That is not a hate crime. Islam is an inherently violent faith, or inherently violent belief system, a death cult, whatever you want to say. I don't particularly like those statements, but they are not hate crimes. Hate crimes are specific. And the problem here is M103 sets in motion the wheels towards banning me or somebody else saying, I don't like Islam for this reason. And that's wrong. And that is really the state of free speech in Canada at this point in time. It's a mess. You think it's bad in the States with Antifa beating up people they don't like. Here in Canada, you can get arrested for saying the wrong thing. Because if you, going back to the human rights tribunals and commissions for a second, if you refuse to acknowledge them or to participate in the process, they'll just send the RCMP to come and arrest you, because the contempt of court and contempt of judgment and everything rules still apply. So you are compelled to cooperate. You are compelled to live with their decision, which could involve forcing you to apologize, forcing you to retract your statement, forcing you to write a new statement outlining the error of your ways, and most of the time giving the guy who complained a ton of money. And it could be that M103 is going to take us down that road as well. Anything which puts a in the works a punishment process for voicing one's opinion is immediately asking for somebody on the other side of an issue to use it to game the system and abuse it. And that, my friends, is absolutely terrifying. So that's it. That's all for me. If you like what you heard, please consider putting a like on whichever feed that you've listened to, whether it's the Twitter feed, whether it's the YouTube feed, or whether it's the Facebook Live feed. Please do like it. Please seek me out on Twitter at scbritton or gab.ai at scbritton. And I'm also over on minds.com at scbritton. And you here on Facebook, I'm at Steve Speaks Freely. Over on minds.com, you can send me a few shekels if you feel like it. You can donate some, you can donate nothing, whichever you want. If you want to sponsor me on a monthly basis, that would be very much appreciated as well. Of course, you don't have to. You can give me something, you can give me nothing. Whatever you want is fine with me. Just understand that the more that you help me out, the better that this show is going to get from time to time. And maybe I'll even be able to turn this into a daily video feed. Who knows? And just so you know, some of the things that I am working on is I am working on another video to be coming out. I'm hoping either later this week or into next week. It's taking me longer than I expected because it's graphic intensive. It involves charts and graphs. And I'm also going to try and riff and speak live every day, 10 a.m. till whenever I'm done, which is going to be a couple of minutes. Tomorrow, I might talk about Trudeau's tax policy. Excuse me. Trudeau's tax policy and the disaster that it is. And then, of course, next week, we've got Free Speech Week. I'll be monitoring that. And we'll see what happens. Anyways, thanks for listening, everybody. This is Steve, signing off.